Okay, now a new movie out in theaters this month. It's called Never Again. It follows a Holocaust survivor and a former radical Islamist as they come together to expose an alarming increase in anti-Semitism around the world. So joining us now is one of the main subjects of the film, Kasim Hafeez, along with the director, Rick Eldridge. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Wonderful to see both of you. I'm interested in the title and where it came from.
Well, never again is a phrase that you hear in Israel and the Jewish community often because it speaks specifically to the Holocaust and all that happened there. And it's an exclamation of this can never happen again. We put a question mark at the end of it because we see what's happening in our world today, and we began to ask the question, really, could this happen again? We see hatred, we see these things happening in so many areas of even America with other cultures. So thus the question, never again, question mark.
I think it's such a great title, and I appreciate the fact that you added that question mark. How is it possible? The statistics show that 45% of Americans do not know that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. How can that be?
I think it's a mixture of things. I think there's a lack of education about the Holocaust. I think there is just general apathy, and people are just very far removed from it. There's, in the society that we live in, where everything is so fast-paced and what is happening in the now, we become very detached from the past. So it's almost out of sight, out of mind, which is, I mean, really sad. And there's the quote that those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And unfortunately, some of the trends we're seeing are kind of scary in that context.
Absolutely, which is interesting too about why now might be the perfect time to release a film like this. Kasim, tell us more about your story and your journey with this film.
So I grew up in the UK and just became radicalized from messages I heard and was growing up, because when you're young, if you're told something repeatedly, it becomes the truth for you, regardless of what the facts are. And this film really looks at my background, my growing up, becoming radicalized, and the changes that happened. And one of the key themes of this film are the changes that we make and loving over hate. And that's really the process I went through. I had this baseless hatred, and we look at where that came from, why that happened, and how that changed, and what we're now doing to combat hatred, and really trying to see the humanity in one another.
So that people understand, could you just share a few thoughts that you held on to as truths as it related to people that you were told to hate?
So Israel and the Jews was really the main focus of a lot of the bigotry and hatred that I was taught, but I would hear things daily such as the Jews are responsible for all the evil in the world, the Jews enjoy murdering non-Jews, or I heard frequently from my own father that Hitler's one mistake was that he didn't murder enough Jews. And when you hear that daily, you almost you have this perception that somehow the Jews were responsible for the Holocaust. They deserved it almost. And when you hear these from a young age repeatedly, they become truths when you don't have anybody to really counteract that false narrative.
It's just shocking to hear those things. Kasim, how do you get over that? How do you fight back against that type of brainwashing? How did you learn what you now see as being the real truth?
So I guess for me, it was experiencing the truth firsthand and seeing the humanity in people who I hadn't seen the humanity in. For years, the Jewish people, I had othered them. So they weren't people anymore, they were just a group. And to visit Israel, to speak and meet and just see the reality and make friendships over time, it shatters those myths and those lies. Once we see people, regardless of their background, their color, their beliefs, as people, we realize we're actually not that different. And that really breaks through some of those awful lies that people can sometimes grow up with about the other, so to speak.
Rick, I'm wondering what can be done, in your opinion, about this increasing anti-Semitism and the violence against Jewish people again now?
I think it's just as Kasim's saying, it's understanding culture and who they are. In our movie, we tell two very parallel stories, and you can read about it in a book. You can hear someone talk to you about something, but when you hear it firsthand. So in this story, it's very important that we see where Irving, as a small child, experienced the things that he did, and then Kasim, learning as a small child to hate. And then as he grows and begins to question, he goes on a quest personally to find out, what is truth really about, especially in this culture that I've learned to hate. And I think it hopefully does help all of us to ask those questions and maybe to look further than that to the theme of the movie, which is to really understand love and not hate of all those around us.
So important. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for the honest and open conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Here's the information now. Never Again will be in theaters nationwide on October 13th and 15th. For tickets, go to neveragainthemovie.com.